Jai Gurudev. Today,
Namaste. Sunil.
Jai Gurudev, we welcome Deepa Devasena, the Nritya Apsara, in today's session of Let's Talk Natya Shastra. And at the Art of Living Academy of Performing Arts, we are soon launching the first ever course online on the Angik Abhyasa of the Natya Shastra. Let us begin with a prayer. Angikam bhuvanam yasya, vachikam sarvavangmayam, aharyam Chandrataradi Tvam Numa Satvikam Shivam. The entire world is but the body and the movement of Shiva. It is said in the Natya Shastra that there is no movement, no science, no art that isn't a part of the tradition documented by Bharat Muni. And Deepa, in your journey, you have been a Bharatanatyam dancer, you have been a Kathak dancer, you have learned about the Natya Shastric movement tradition, as well as been a Lavani, Bollywood, contemporary dancer, and a biker chick. So I think there's every movement in this world that you may have covered. So I'll request you to share a bit about your journey in this entire field of dance and movement.
Uh, Firstly, namaste to everyone who's joined us today. Sunil, having this opportunity to talk about Natya Shastra on such a festive day is very special to me. I couldn't think of a better day or a better opportunity to share about Natya Shastra and a little bit about me in this journey with all of everybody who's watching and joining us. I'll quickly start from the birthplace where I was born as Chidambaram, which is considered the humble abode for the cosmic dancer himself. And the Chidambaram temple was very instrumental and influenced a big part of revival of Natya Shastra. We have heard stories of Dr. Padma Subramaniam, who has invested 40 years of her life in reviving, reconstructing, and bringing Natya Shastra back to us in the present century so that we can all have something that was lost, such a treasure of movement vocabulary that was lost, and she was the one who brought it back to us. And this, my birthplace, and to visit those temples every time I went back to my birthplace where my grandparents were there, going back every summer, having such experiences. And I have vivid memories of walking through the festival days where there is music and instrument and all kinds of aarti that happens. And there is even a story where my parents said, "Can I take a stroll in the temple?" And I said, they said, "Yeah, you can go take a stroll." They just meant around the Garbhagudi, the main mantapa. And I've gone all the way through and they set up a search party looking for me. So that Chidambaram is a very mesmerizing place for any dancer. And to have an opportunity to be born there, I consider it a big blessing. And then we talked about how there are different things that have become to do, not just one form of dance, many form of art forms. I think that also started with my parents influencing me with different genres of music, and I had the good fortune of being with my grandparents growing up. So they sang a lot of songs. Even if they were putting me to bed, there were songs for that. If they if it was a bath time ritual, then there were like poetries that they used to sing, which were native and folk. And my parents, my mother was a big fan of Bharatiyar and lots of kavis of the Tamil literature. So there were a lot of poetries that she used to sing. And my father, who was a traveler, who was a sales and a marketing person, he used to bring in a lot of records and tapes from Boney M, and we have been singing like Ra Ra Rasputin to Daddy Cool and all that. So, music influence has been a big part of growing up for me. Then I didn't know I was listening to reggae and disco, or I was listening to a classical music, or was it a music from the movies? Did I listen to poetries? We didn't have a awareness of all this that was given to me, and it just seeped in as part of the growing. singing the poetry, singing, listening to all this music and jiving and moving along. This was part of me growing up. I think that's been a big influence in what you choose to do in the later part of your life. In the formative years, having an influence of so many genres of music, being in the temples, watching all the festivals that happens in Chidambaram, be it, and adapting this, you listen to all this in your home environment growing up, so that becomes a big part of what you do in your everyday life. I think that's where all these different genres come. Started with Bharatanatyam. I think my formal schooling was my dance class. That's where I went to school first in a very young age. And then I was too young to go to an academic school. So my parents thought, oh, good way to start her into formal education was dance. So my first was my dance class, where a dance teacher, Aarti, was kind enough to take me in to just observe the class, not to dance when I was 3.5 years. She said she can come, be part of the class, see the seniors dance and observe it. And then slowly started moving and dancing in the dance class. Then I went to actual academic school where I got my education and did my master's, simultaneously graduated in Bharatanatyam. And another interesting coincidence is I was raised in Mysore. After my high school, I moved to Bangalore. Very fortunately, I was right next door to Sundari Santanam, Guru Sundari Santanam, who revived the neo-Deshi Karanas. I didn't know then what a legend she was when we were going. She's like, oh, I hear she's a wonderful teacher. Let's put you in her class. And my mom made this decision and she put me in the class. And that's where all the training of, it was like 3 or 4 days a week class where we had 1 day of fitness. Now we call it fitness or, training your body parts. That's now looking back, I see how the training the body was inherent in the learning process itself, where we had the shlokas recitation for each part of the body and doing Vedas, different Vedas for the eyes, to the major limbs, to the minor limbs, all of integrated. So there was 1 day where there was integrated fitness and training of the body parts. There are some days of working on theory, shlokas, and understanding what these meant and how to pronounce it correctly. The theoretical aspects of dance and music. There was another day where we went back to class and learned about the movement vocabulary, techniques, and learning the structure of the dance. And this was how our class was structured. So since Sundari Akka was so well versed in Natya Shastra, even before I knew what was Natya Shastra, I had the good fortune of learning Natya Shastra and then understanding, oh, this is what I've been learning and working on all these years.
I think this is so beautiful the way you have shared that sanskara has just become a part of your life. You started learning dance even before you went to school, as you say, which is truly amazing. And then this entire experience of the Natya Shastric experience which you have had over the years. This is truly beautiful, Deepa. And I have a question for you. In your performances, you always bring together a number of different music genres, styles, combining them together. And now, from your journey, I can understand what is the source behind that thought process of yours. But in terms of the actual technical thought process that you have, how do you think I'll use a particular movement and another particular movement now that you know that this is Kathak, this is Bharatanatyam, this is from Natya Shastra? Or do you just let go of that and go back to the time when you just were intuitively a dancer and just danced? Or is it a mix of the two?
Sunil, I think every dancer, even it might have happened to you when you listen to a music, you will choreograph it. Doesn't matter, you have to perform it, show it, or practice it. If there is a music that influences your mind, you start to move in a way that feels natural to you. So it is quite an intuitive way of moving. And I think the more you practice something, that seeps into your process of creating an application. And you don't know, you're not making a very like a very educate. Now, let me use one movement of Natya Shastra, one movement of Kathak. It never happens in a section of a very clean cut. Let me use this, after this, followed by that. It's going to be what is in your body, how have you trained. And I see the more I practice something over the years, over a period of time, or immediately I've had an influence, I've finished something and come back, listen to a music, then that's going to show up in whatever I create, be it any form of dance. And most of my Bollywood classes also, when I teach, you will see it is almost like, I don't call it a semi-classical class. If I'm using a Bollywood tune, it's a Bollywood class for me. But it looks more like a very trained, structured elements of my training that seeps in, be it Kathak, Bharatanatyam, Natya, whatever that is, it becomes a confluence of what I have been trained in. So I
That's
don't think I
beautiful.
made a choice, a very clear, educative choice of, okay, this is going to be in this particular genre. That's never happened to me.
That's so beautiful, Deepa, and that brings me to this unique workshop that we are conducting in collaboration with Aravi and yourself and the Art of Living Academy of Performing Arts, and your wonderful collaboration at Pennsylvania with the Kathak dancers and Rasikas over there. And so, what exactly will Angik Abhyasa be all about? What will people get to learn as a part of this course when they come on board?
Okay, so this course, we're going to start as an introductory course or a level 1 course, where this is very similar to the Tandava Lakshanam chapter of the Natya Shastra, which is the chapter 4, which talks about how to train Sharira and Mukaja. So there are two elements in the training, to be to have a structure and a substance, to learn the elements of technicalities and the application and meaning of it. So how do we start the training to absorb these movements that is mentioned in Natya Shastra? Is we're going to begin with working on some of our major limbs. There are 5 angas, so we'll be working targeting on the head variations, the shlokas, and how many ways can you move the head as listed in the Natya Shastra. Then coming to the chest, the sides of the body, the feet, all of these will be covered in the anga. So there is going to be dividing it in 3 parts, starting with angas, pratyangas, subsidiary limbs, upangas, which is mostly going to be the minor limbs or the facial elements from variations and exercises for your eyebrows, for your eyes and eyelids and mouth, which is very essential for abhinaya. So we all, if you ask a dancer, they would say sometimes it's technique or the other times it is going to be abhinaya. How do we improve our abhinaya? Now, in the Natya Shastra, you would see not just the ways of using your limbs and body, it also lists applications, like what situations can you use this. So when are some of the ideas, not all of them listed, but they are very codified way of telling where what can be used. If I did a movement, what does it signify? What does it show? So these are some of the things that is listed. So we are going to go through the Anga Vyayamas, Upanga Vyayamas, Pratyanga Vyayamas. So we are going to go through all of this. That's going to be a big section of it. After we've learned how to use the body, the variations of the ways and the multiple ways we can move the bodies, and learn the application of what situations can these be applied to, then we go into the next element or the next section of learning, which is going to be integrating all of this in a movement, which is going to be called Karanas. Now, what is Karanas? We talked about basic elements. Now, Karanas being this, not just a movement or a sequence of movements, it is also used to convey a certain story or a substance. You can think of now the charis and the little movements, tanas, all these are elements or units of dance that we'll be training
The
and
building
working on.
blocks.
Building blocks of dance, exactly. So we'll be putting all of this together and create sentences. Now that we have learned the words and little meanings of the singular words. Now we say, how do we construct that into a sentence and communicate and convey a meaning and emotive aspects of dance. So now the Karanas is not just the beautiful flow of movements or embellishments, it also doubles as a lyrical and expressive aspect. So we use the building blocks to construct a sentence and learn to speak a language.
That's so beautifully said and a perfect answer. So when they come to Angik Abhyasa, they will learn a new language. Some of the
Can I
questions that
also
I've had,
add? Can I
uh,
also add, Sunil? Now
yes,
there is
please.
a misconception that Karanas is only for a particular dance style.
That was
Only for
exactly my next question, Deepa, because I have had many people messaging me and asking me, I am not a Bharatanatyam dancer, I am a Kathak dancer, or I am not a dancer at all. Can I be a part of this? So I was going to request you to speak exactly about that now, about who can come and is it open to everyone, age independent and style independent?
it is definitely open to everybody who are interested in adding a movement vocabulary. Now we have, I listed out so many angas and upangas and all that. There are sthanas, which are static movements. There are dynamic upper body movements called nrittahastas. There are lower body movements called charis. There is bhumi charis and the aerial works where one leg is always off the ground or both legs are off the ground. So each of them, now there are 32 charis just with the feet. In the charis section, we have 32. And we have nrittahastas, which are so many in number. So combination of those, you just have to think what are the possibilities when you bring all of a combination of so many things. And in my choreographies, or once they start to learn, also, you will see the way you start using it is so varied and adaptable. Now that I said, Karanas is like a language. Now, some of you don't have to think of language as being, I can only speak Karanas. You have to think of a language that is so well integrated and adapted into your style in any, whatever style that is. So you just have to consider that as it is growing your vocabulary. Now you can speak more eloquently and efficiently and not think, okay, this is going to restrict what I have. It is going to just open up the channels to speak more beautifully, narrate more aesthetically.
That is such a beautiful answer, Deepa, and we are all going to quote you on that of being able to speak more beautifully and more lyrically in through our dance by learning this beautiful movement vocabulary that you're going to take us on in this journey. And finally, these times there has been a lot of success with teaching dance online through Zoom. But when it comes to something like this, learning the movement vocabulary of the Natya Shastra, there aren't many avenues online. At least I believe this would be one of the first such courses that would be conducted through this medium, connecting students from India, South Africa, USA together as one. How do you feel that that limitation could be overcome in terms of the teaching and the pedagogy in for people to learn this? Because in many ways it's something very new that people can't go and watch elsewhere also in
Right.
terms of the material being covered.
Uh, I think people are like, again, adapting and accepting the new ways of learning. Earlier, it was we started with a teacher, one single teacher with a student, right? That's how the class formats were a few decades ago. And then we were okay with having group classes and teacher being able to give individual attention to everybody in the group. Then we started with distance learning where people go once in certain amount of time and learn from the teacher and come back and practice it. Now we are moving into the world of digital media and having this virtual experience of learning and still being accountable to our learning, sharing and teaching process. So there is a lot of accountability and responsibility. I think if we are smart enough to have good source of observation, good way of recording things and writing it, making notes, and have this communication channel open. Am I doing it correctly? Going back and forth, sharing videos. All this is helping us with my regular classes, with my students who are spread across the US. So I have now grown into using this media to my advantage. And I don't see it a debilitating factor. I have seen it as it enables you to do more, learn more. And we
That's
have
truly
done, Sunil,
encouraging.
you and I have done the diploma course in Natya Shastra,
Yes, of course, with
being
Dr.
assistant
Puru
teacher.
Dalich, and
Guru.
that was in fact the first online course ever curated by me, and the
Yeah.
inception of the journey where helped me to reach here, where I could think of doing something like this with you, and that was truly encouraging, I'm sure, for everyone who's listening. And I have one last request before we conclude this teet-a-teet with you, is that those students who have joined us in this session live, if you can teach us all one movement which we can do sitting from the Natya Shastra, and if everybody could turn on their videos and join us for this one quick, super speedy class with Deepa Devasena.
Okay, now the challenge is sitting. It is not even a challenge. Trust me, this is going to be such a fun exercise, especially for Kathak dancers who pride on doing wrist movements so beautifully and grace comes through the wrist. And with Maharaji, how many times have we heard Kalai? It's the Kalai that, ties in the whole of the movement together. So we have done a lot of Kalai work, and I'm going to share a small exercise, and this will lead us into a Hasta Karanas, which you will see in every element of learning Karanas. In every Karana that we practice and perform, this Hasta Karanas is definitely there. So we're going to go through that. I'll start with the exercise. We'll start with some little warm up before we ask our wrist to do a lot of things. We'll start with a little warm up. I'm going to ask everyone to open up and spread the fingers wide, where we're creating a good space between each of the fingers, and then bringing back to closed position and pushing it against the force, pressing the center of the palm out, open it up, and then bringing it in. So pushing it out, spacing out the fingers, extending our fingers nice and long, and bringing it in. From here, we're just going to stretch and open up just one finger at a time, and then close one at a time. And we can go back to opening one at a time. So this is the mechanism we're going to use in this Karana, just to open up one finger at a time and not in a rush to open everything. So just going into one at a time and closing. We're going to start by doing some wrist circles, slowly going one way. Now I'm going to ask you to engage your entire arm and not just do the wrist loosely. Use the entire arm. And if you could reverse that circle, again engaging all the muscle groups in your arm. From there, we are going into figure eights. Now we talked about flexion and the anatomy and musculature that we are going to use in the training process. Now you can see this creates flexion. There is a lot of decreasing angles that happens. So we're working on creating flexion with the wrist. There is also flexion with the elbow that we are going to work on in the training process, flexion with the legs that we're going to, ankles and all that. Now, the first Hasta Karana is going to be Apaveshtitam, where you're starting to roll one finger at a time. We're going to roll it in as we are slowly raising the elbow up. So we are going to roll all the fingers one at a time. And this is how it's going to look. Apaveshtitamekam syat. From there, we're going to start releasing. Turn the wrist inward towards you. The palm is starting to face you. And then we're going to release the index finger and then the next middle finger, ring finger, little finger, and the thumb. So this is going to be Udveshtita Mata Param. Again, we're going to try the Apaveshtitam and the Udveshtitam. From here, 5, 6, 7, go. Apaveshtitamekam syat Udveshtitamathaparam. Now rolling the fingers in and sucking everything in towards you, starting from the little finger and then the ring finger, middle finger, index finger, lastly will be your thumb. So we're going to roll everything back in, starting from here, and suck it in as though all the fingers are rolling in one at a time towards you. And we're going to keep the space and not collapse it. So we're going to roll them in. And then the last one is going to be releasing from the little finger one at a time. Release, 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 release. So there is a meeting point, and then they meet before they fold. Meet before they fold, meet and fold. Same way they meet and then spread open. Rolling in. And the last one is this. So we are going to say the shloka for the 4 Hastakaranas that we practiced. We'll say the shloka and do it together. Apaveshtitamekam syat Udveshtitamataparam Vyavartitam tritiyantu Chaturtam parivartitam. One more time. Apaveshtitamekam syat Udveshtitamataparam Vyavartitam tritiyantu Chaturtam parivartitam. Okay, those were
Thank
the
you,
4
Deepa.
Hastakaras.
That
Thank
was
you.
so wonderful. Just like Krishna had the power to lift the Govardhan on his little finger, you showed us how even the little finger can separately be used as a part of dance. That was so beautiful. And we are truly looking forward to this wonderful course with you, which is, I'm sure, going to be very iconic with the blessings of the divine, Gurudev Shri Shri, and Bharat Muni from up there in the Gandharvas. Thank you to all these students who joined us today and became part of this wonderful exercise that we concluded the session with. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sunil.